She just wanted silence, until two aliens arrived with a secret that could wake the stars. What if the quiet life you fought to build was never truly yours? She came to the edge of the galaxy for silence, for peace, for escape. But when two alien guardians, mysterious, beautiful, and far too familiar, arrive claiming she's more than human, Elia Winters finds herself drawn into a truth written not in blood, but in sound. This is a story of resonance, of reluctant power, and of love that doesn't ask for permission. So if you're the kind of listener who believes that silence can be sacred and broken for something extraordinary, stay. Watch. Feel. And while you do, tell me in the comments, what would you do if your destiny knocked at your door, wearing violet skin and secrets? The relay station hung like a forgotten ornament in the void, half shadow, half light, orbiting a blue dwarf that hadn't been named by anything but numbers. And that was exactly how Elia Winters liked it. No sirens. No cities. No people. Just the low hum of life support, the gentle click of environmental regulators, and the whispering breath of the station's artificial gravity coils spinning beneath her feet. Peace wasn't just a luxury here, it was a condition of survival. One disturbance, one careless decibel, and the station's finely tuned systems might spin into chaos. She had come for silence. She craved it. Elia floated into her quarters, pushing off the railings like a swimmer between stars. Her boots made a soft magnetic thunk against the floor as she landed. Everything about her personal room was small, neat, and beautifully empty. A cot, a workstation, an acoustic panel wall she'd modified herself to reduce echo. In the corner, a stack of sound masking recorders she'd brought from Earth, a comfort from her old life, even if she hadn't powered them on since arriving. Elia dropped her toolkit beside the door and pulled off her gloves. Her breath fogged the air slightly. The station always ran cool to preserve power. She activated the central interface. Maintenance log, Elia Winters. Completed inspection of audio node clusters in Sector 4B. Signal feedback minimal, harmonic drift within parameters. The AI chirped its acknowledgement. She paused, rubbing the back of her neck. The skin there still prickled. Ever since this morning, a sound faint, inaudible to most ears, had been worming its way through the lower layers of the station's systems. Like a song just below the threshold of hearing. She couldn't prove it yet. Not to the AI, not to the fleet. But she knew it was there. She could feel it vibrating in her bones. The chime came at exactly 1900 hours. She didn't expect it. No one came here. Not unless something had gone very wrong. Elia turned, frowning. Station, she asked aloud. Visitor authorization received. Entry permitted. Visitor wait, what? But it was already too late. The door hissed open, and with it came a gust of air, not stale, but fragrant, tinged with something sweet and unfamiliar. Two figures stepped through, tall and unmistakably not human. Elia froze. The first was silver-skinned with eyes like ice held under moonlight, tall, built like a soldier, with an expression carved from stone. His hair was a pale sheen that shimmered faintly, tied back with ruthless precision. The second was the opposite in every way. Her skin was a deep twilight purple, alive with shifting iridescence. Her eyes glowed softly, and when she smiled, it lit the room like morning sun in a place that had never known daylight. Good evening, Elia Winters, said the silver one. His voice was low, flat. Almost robotic. We are here to assist in your emotional regulation and adaptive transition. The purple one gave a little wave. Hi. I'm Nyra. He's Kael. And we're your official support pair. Surprise. Elia took a step back. Support, what? Kael spoke again. As per subsection 9A of Fleet Regulation 808.3, personnel flagged as high-risk trauma candidates during off-world reassignment are entitled to biological adaptation assistance. Assistance, Elia repeated numbly. No one told me anything about this. Nyra tilted her head sympathetically. It's usually a surprise. They think it reduces anticipatory stress. Isn't that dumb? Elia's mouth opened, then closed. Her ears were ringing. The silence she'd clung to like a blanket had been torn away by color and presence and a voice like velvet and starlight. She looked between them, panic rising like a slow tide. No. No, I didn't ask for this. I don't need help. I came here because I don't want. Her voice cracked. People. Kael didn't move. But Nyra did. She stepped forward slowly, palms open, as if approaching a wild animal. Not people, she said gently. Just us. Elia stared at her, at the way her skin shimmered with each breath, at how her presence filled the room in a way sound alone never could. Why now? She whispered. Nyra's smile faded slightly. Because the silence you chose is ending, Elia. Whether you wanted to or not. Elia hadn't spoken in hours. Kael and Nyra didn't seem to mind. They'd moved into the station like shadows slipping through glass, seamless, quiet, unsettlingly competent. In less than a day, Nyra had recalibrated the lighting in Elia's quarters to adjust based on her cortisol cycles, and Kael had installed a biometric scanner beneath her sleeping pad without even asking. Elia only discovered it when her bed suddenly started tracking her heartbeat mid-nap. Now she sat at her workstation, back rigid, fingers hovering above her audio panel. Behind her, Kael stood silently near the door, watchful, unmoving. Nyra lounged upside down on a narrow cot, humming softly to herself, her hair brushing the floor like liquid amethyst. Elia cleared her throat. What are you even doing? Stimulating ambient neural balance, Nyra said cheerfully. You're overfiring your frontal cortex. That means stress. Kael spoke without turning his head. She's correct. I'm not stressed, Elia snapped, louder than intended. Nyra's hum cut off, and the silence returned thick, charged. Kael moved first, stepping forward with slow precision. Elia Winters, he said, voice perfectly even, your physiological indicators suggest otherwise. Heart rate, elevated. Pupillary response, dilated. Breathing, shallow. You are in a state of fight or flight. Elia turned to face him, chin lifted. That's because I have 2 aliens living in my room. This is temporary, Kael said. Nyra piped up. We're just a transition team. Once your neural pathways adjust to deep space isolation, we'll probably be reassigned. Unless she paused, grin widening. You score too high on the resonance scale. Kael shot her a look. Nyra winked. Elia caught the exchange and frowned. What scale? Nothing, they said in unison. Her frustration flared, sharp and hot. Okay. Enough. What the hell are you two? Because you're not just emotional regulation assistants. No one programs glowing skin and telepathic tension for therapy. Nyra sat up, swinging her legs over the side of the bed. She tilted her head, studying Elia with unsettling focus. We're here to help you adapt, she said softly. That's all. To what? Silence. Kael's jaw shifted. To yourself, Nyra finally answered. Later that night, Elia tried to sleep. The lights dimmed to a pale blue glow. The station creaked softly around her like a living beast exhaling. She pulled the blanket over her shoulders, turned to the wall, and willed her mind to quiet. It didn't work. She heard Nyra's breathing first slow, rhythmic, somewhere in the corner. Then Kael's almost imperceptible movements, as if he was pacing silently, never needing rest. The soft hum in her bones returned. That sound. That ghost tone she couldn't trace. It slithered through the static of her senses, a melody just out of reach. Elia! She jolted. Kael stood beside her bunk, gaze cool but unreadable. You're not entering REM. Your nervous system is agitated. She sat up, exasperated. Are you reading my sleep now too? Kael didn't blink. Yes. I didn't consent. You did, he replied, and handed her a tablet. Your contract. Section 17A. Elia scanned the text, heart sinking. Neurological monitoring is permitted during transitional adaptation for optimal health and mission readiness. Nyra peeked over the tablet. Fine print is a killer. I signed up for solitude, Elia muttered. Nyra's smile was softer now. Maybe the universe thought you needed something else. In the morning, Elia awoke to the smell of cinnamon. Nyra was standing at the tiny kitchenette, stirring something in a thermos. Synth spice blend, she explained. Your scent memory file said you used to associate it with safety. A childhood pastry. Elia blinked, stunned. How do you even know that? Nyra turned, holding the cup with both hands. It was in your profile. Kael added from the corner, we know everything about you, Elia. That's how we're designed. Something about the way he said it made her shiver. You're not therapists, she whispered. Nyra stepped closer. No, she admitted, we're not. The silence between them vibrated with tension. But we're trying, Nyra added. Because, maybe we're more than what we were built for? Kael looked at Elia, then really looked at her, and for the first time, his voice cracked the surface of its calm. You hear it, don't you? He asked. The sound. Elia's breath caught. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Kael and Nyra already knew. The sound returned at 3:47 station time. Elia woke in the dark with it buzzing through her skull, not loud, but inside, like her bones were tuning forks struck by something invisible. She sat up in bed, sweating, heart racing. Computer, she whispered. Record audio. Recording. She activated her workstation and routed the mic feed to her waveform analyzer. The display flickered, and for a long moment, there was nothing. Then, a pulse. Soft. Sharp. Irregular. A tone that shouldn't exist in the station's frequency range. It was like a breath. Or a whispered word she almost recognized. Nyra, Elia said quietly, but there was no response. She glanced toward the corner bunk. Empty. Kael was gone, too. A cold shiver ran through her spine. She isolated the sound signature and enhanced the waveform. As the shape formed on the screen, she blinked. It looked like a glyph. A perfect geometric shape. Too precise for noise. Too intentional. Her throat tightened. She found them in Sector B6, where no personnel were supposed to be after dark. A low-maintenance access tunnel, barely wide enough for 3 people to stand side by side. Kael stood motionless at the center, surrounded by glowing strands of hardwired conduit. Nyra sat beside him, her hand hovering over a flat stone-like device that pulsed with faint inner light. "What is that?" Elia demanded. They turned. Neither looked surprised to see her. "You heard it again," Kael said flatly. Elia nodded slowly. "And I recorded it." Nyra rose to her feet, smile gentle but serious now. "Then it started." "What has?" Kael stepped forward. "Your resonance." They brought her back to their shared quarters and activated a device Elia hadn't seen before. It unfolded from Kael's wrist like liquid metal, forming a miniature holographic array that pulsed with deep violet light. "This is a resonance shard," he said. "One of the last from the SciFiRomance vaults. We weren't sure it would respond to you." "Why would it?" "Because you carry the frequency," Nyra whispered. Elia looked from one to the other. "Explain." Kael studied her, as if waiting whether she was ready. "You've heard of DNA encryption," he said finally. "Now imagine sound-based encryption. Technology coded not through numbers or chemicals, but pure tone. The ancient SciFiRomance mastered it. Machines that only responded to voices matched to specific harmonic keys." Nyra continued, "And some of those keys were encoded into bloodlines." The air in the room felt thinner. "You think I'm part of that?" Elia laughed short, hollow. "I'm from Echelon 9. My mother was a sanitation worker. My father vanished before I was born. I'm no alien princess." Nyra's smile didn't waver. "You don't have to be royalty. Just resonant." "Why me?" Elia said, voice cracking. "Why not someone trained for this?" Kael's gaze didn't flinch. "Because no one else could activate the shard." When she agreed to try, Kael stepped back. Nyra dimmed the lights. The room sank into near darkness, lit only by the low thrum of the shard. "Just speak," Nyra instructed. "Let the tone inside you guide the shape." Elia hesitated. She thought of her old life, of the ruined city, of the screams buried in dust, of the explosion that had shattered glass and left her with a lifelong twitch in her right hand. And then she thought of that sound she'd been hearing. She opened her mouth. What came out was not her voice. Or rather it was, but changed. Lower. Fuller. Laced with notes she couldn't have consciously formed. The shard responded instantly. Light burst from its surface, spiraling upward into delicate arcs of sound turned shape, ancient glyphs etched into light, revolving like constellations. Symbols she didn't recognize yet felt. Elia gasped. The shard surged. The whole room pulsed in sync with her breath. Then suddenly it all stopped. The light blinked out. Silence returned. Kael looked stunned. Even Nyra's glow dimmed in awe. "You weren't supposed to do that," Kael said quietly. "Not yet. Not alone." "What just happened?" Nyra approached her slowly, touched her shoulder. "You awakened it. And it awakened you." They didn't speak on the way back. Kael walked several steps ahead, posture tense, hands clasped behind his back like a soldier in disgrace. Nyra stayed close to Elia, eyes downcast, her glow subdued, pulsing faintly like a wounded pulse. Elia tried to breathe normally, but she couldn't stop replaying the moment in her head, the sound, the light, the way the shard had responded to her like she was meant for it. Her mind whispered things she wasn't ready to believe. She wasn't special. She didn't want to be. And yet... "Kael," she said quietly as they reached the hallway junction, "what did I actually activate?" He didn't answer at first. When he did, it was without turning around. "A locator?" Elia stopped walking. "What?" Kael turned now, slowly, and his eyes, usually pale and emotionless, were darker. Sharper. You triggered a resonance pattern buried in the SciFiRomance network. It broadcasted to dormant satellites across the region. A beacon. One that says, the air frequency has returned. The air around her seemed to collapse. You knew this might happen, she whispered. Kael didn't deny it. We were instructed to observe, guide, protect. But only if you activated the sequence willingly. Nyra spoke for the first time, voice barely audible. And if she didn't? Kael looked at Elia. Then you would have lived your life in silence. Unaware. Unawakened. Forgotten. They returned to her quarters in uneasy quiet. Elia sat at her workbench while Nyra adjusted the climate controls, her movements slower than usual. Kael stood near the viewport, arms crossed, staring out into the star-dusted dark. I'm being hunted now, aren't I? Elia said. Kael's voice was flat. Yes. By who? No answer. Kael, she snapped. No more evasions. He turned at last. They are called the Virillium Concord. They were once allies of the SciFiRomance Empire, until they betrayed it. They've spent centuries erasing every trace of resonance tech, purging bloodlines, sterilizing worlds that carried the trait. Elia swallowed hard. And now I'm on their radar? You're not just on it, Nyra said gently. You're the center of it. Elia pressed her palms into her eyes. God. I just wanted to fix sound panels and be left alone. Kael's voice softened. Almost imperceptibly. I believe you. Later that night, Kael approached her alone. Nyra had gone to recalibrate the sleep zone, as she put it, but Elia sensed she was just giving them space. Kael stood by her workstation, his posture still rigid, but his voice had lost some of its practiced chill. You're handling this better than I expected. I'm not, Elia said flatly. He nodded. Good. You shouldn't. She glanced up. So, what happens now? You take me to some hidden temple? Tell me I'm the chosen one. Kael didn't smile. But there was something close. I don't believe in prophecy. I believe in pattern recognition. And right now, every pattern says we need to move soon. I'm not leaving the station. Then it will come to you? That silenced her. Kael stepped forward, slower now, less like a guardian, more like a person. You deserve to know something, he said quietly. I wasn't built for this kind of protection. I was built for final options. But Nyra, she lobbied for your assignment. She said if anyone could reach you, it'd be her. Elia looked at him, searching for something under the surface. And you, she asked. Why did you agree? Kael looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, she saw doubt in his expression. Because I was tired of obeying orders I didn't understand. Nyra returned later, her skin softly glowing again, her mood lighter. She flopped onto Elia's cot and stretched like a cat, arms over her head, one leg hanging lazily off the edge. You know, she said, we could calibrate the shard more tomorrow. It responded really fast. I bet it knows you. Like, knows. Elia gave her a sideways glance. You're oddly enthusiastic about being chased by interstellar assassins. I'm enthusiastic about you, Nyra said simply. You're awake now. That's rare. That's worth something. There was a quiet reverence in her voice that made Elia's chest tighten. Nyra shifted to sit upright. Her violet eyes flickered in the low light. You have no idea how long we waited. Not just me and Kael. All of us. For a signal. For a voice that wasn't lost. Elia felt the words settle into her bones like a truth too large to carry. I'm not ready, she whispered. Nyra reached out, hand resting over Elia's. Neither were we. The shard pulsed again at 2:13. Not just with light this time but with memory. Elia sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes locked on the fragment of crystal that now hovered an inch above the palm of her hand. It vibrated in tune with her heartbeat, as if syncing to her rhythm like it knew her. Why now? She asked. Nyra sat beside her, glowing faintly in the dark, hands folded neatly in her lap. Because you asked it to. Without realizing. Kael stood behind them both, silent as ever, but more alert than usual. He hadn't rested in over 30 hours. Elia suspected he didn't need to. Or refused to. Okay, she said, voice low. Show me. The shard responded instantly. It released a burst of sound, not noise, not music, but something in between. A harmonic pulse so ancient, so bone-deep, that Elia gasped. It wasn't painful. But it was intimate. Like a memory from someone else's childhood whispered in her own voice. Then the light bloomed, and the room vanished. She stood in a wide silver hall. Ornate patterns glimmered across the floor, concentric rings that pulsed like ripples in a pond. Tall spires curved above her, glowing with the same deep violet as Nyra's skin. Before her stood a woman statuesque, regal, with markings across her skin that pulsed with layered light. Not tattooed. Not painted. Alive. Her voice rang out, clear and undeniable. You are born not of one world, but of many echoes. You are the last breath of Salthera. The voice that reawakens the stars. The vision shifted. Now she saw Kael and Nyra, or versions of them. Younger. Standing with others in rows, faces blank, eyes hard. They were in training, firing weapons, navigating zero-G environments, performing rituals in soundproof chambers. Nyra flinched as an instructor screamed into her face. Kael didn't move as his arm was cut and repaired with biogel. You were not built to live, the woman said. You were built to protect. And to serve the voice when it returns. Elia gasped and the shard cut the feed. She fell back, panting, the floor suddenly reeled beneath her again. Her eyes snapped to Kael and Nyra. Nyra's expression was wide open, raw. Kael's was unreadable, but he didn't deny anything. You were made for me, Elia said. Not a question. Nyra nodded. We didn't know what you'd be like. We were told to expect, her voice faltered. A weapon. A ruler. A ghost. Kael stepped forward, kneeling slowly before her. Elia blinked. What are you doing? He lowered his head. Recognizing your command. I didn't, she faltered. I'm not a queen. I'm not a leader. No, Kael said. But you carry the frequency. And that means someone will come to claim it. Or destroy it. Nyra's voice was soft now. We choose to protect it. Not because we were made to. But because we want to. Elia stood, legs shaky. She paced to the viewport, pressing her forehead to the glass. The stars stretched across infinity beyond the hull, indifferent to everything happening in her tiny bubble of existence. She closed her eyes and whispered, what if I don't want any of this? Nyra came to stand beside her, gently resting a hand on her shoulder. Then we protect you anyway? That night, Elia didn't dream. Not of war. Not of explosions. not of falling cities and bloodied streets. Instead, she heard a voice not hers, not Nyra's, not Kael's, but something older, wiser, rising like a song from the edge of her soul. The silence has ended. The voice has returned. Let the stars remember what they lost. The warning came in 3 layers. First, a subtle flicker in the outer sensor relay, barely noticeable unless you were looking. Second, a low-tone alarm, deep and slow, not the standard blaring klaxon. Third, Kael's voice, cold and clipped. Inbound vessel. No identification. Trajectory intersects station vector in 17 minutes. Elia dropped her wrench. It clanged against the deck, echoing too loud in the quiet. Nyra was already moving barefoot, calm but quick, her eyes pulsing with brighter light. Kael was at the command console, fingers flying across the control surface, calling up a display of the incoming ship. No transponder, he said. Stealth class. Beryllium signature is 83.4% probable. Elia's stomach turned to stone. How did they find us so fast? Kael looked up at her. You lit a beacon across 3 systems. 12 minutes later, the station's gravity shutters vibrated as if something had grabbed the hull and shaken it. The outer comms array went dark. Then the station lights flickered, and every terminal screen turned black only to flash back with a single, pulsing symbol, 3 interlocking rings glowing in red. Kael cursed under his breath. It was the first time Elia had heard him use emotion like a weapon. Invasion protocol initiated, he said. They are not here to capture. They are here to wipe. Why? Elia demanded. I'm just. You're not just anything anymore, Nyra snapped. Her glow had gone hard now, not warm. You activated the shard. That's more than they can allow. Kael grabbed a case from under the console and slammed it open. Inside, weapons. Not a human issue. Sleek, curved, laced with violet threading that pulsed like veins. Take her to the fallback tunnel, he told Nyra. I'll hold the corridor. What? No, Elia grabbed his arm. You're not staying behind. I was programmed to slow threats. You weren't. And then, softer, neither was she. Nyra locked eyes with Kael. You die here, and she's exposed. His jaw clenched. He nodded once. The fallback tunnel was narrow and pitch black, hidden behind an acoustic baffle panel Elia had never thought to question. She followed Nyra into its silence, heart hammering. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Dozens. Moving in perfect sync. Not boots metal. Elia turned to Nyra. What kind of weapons are they bringing? Wrong question, Nyra said grimly. Ask what they're trying to erase. Kael didn't speak again. He waited just beyond the main engineering shaft, dual blades drawn, each humming with harmonic energy that pulsed in sync with his breath. When the invaders entered dark-armored, faceless, skin replaced by plating, they didn't ask questions. Kael didn't offer answers. He moved like falling water and sharpened wind. In the fallback chamber, Elia stumbled. Her head throbbed. The sound was back. But this time it wasn't buried or muffled. It rang like a bell. A resonance that shook her molars and danced in her fingertips. Nyra caught her as she fell. You're sinking, she whispered. Your body's responding to the threat. I don't know what to do, Elia gasped. Nyra touched her forehead with glowing fingers. You don't need to know. You just need to listen. Somewhere behind them, Kael screamed. Elia jerked. That was. I know. They ran. Kael met them again near the evac pod bay. His left arm was scorched. His torso had a deep gash, circuitry sparking. But he was alive barely. "They brought a prime-class hunter," he rasped. "I slowed it." Nyra didn't ask how many he killed. She only pressed her hands to his wound and closed her eyes. Violet light poured from her skin into his. Elia stared at the two of them. Warriors. Weapons. Family. And all of it, somehow, hers. "Will they chase us if we launch?" "They'll try," Kael said, standing again. "But the pod's trajectory is preloaded. Direct coordinates to the resonant vault." Elia hesitated. "What's there?" Nyra looked at her. "Answers." As the pod detached, Elia looked back through the viewport at the relay station that had been her retreat, her hiding place, and now her battlefield. Smoke curled from the docking ring. The beacon still pulsed in the background. But below all that, inside her chest, something else pulsed too. Not fear. Not even doubt. Just a sound. Rising. Calling. Awakening. The escape pod screamed through the atmosphere of an unnamed moon, its shell burning with friction and fate. Elia braced herself between Kael's slumped body and Nyra's glowing hands, every breath rattling in her lungs. The moon was cracked. Not dead but wounded. Its surface shimmered with fractured glass-like canyons and ancient architecture buried half beneath sandstorms and shadow. And at its center, carved into the valley like a wound that refused to heal, stood a black tower silent, waiting. "Welcome to the vault," Nyra murmured. They entered through a gate that wasn't a door, exactly more like a field of silence that parted for Elia the moment she stepped near. Kael leaned on Nyra, but walked unaided. Elia moved ahead. She felt the space respond to her presence. The walls pulsed. The air sang. This place wasn't just built to house something. It was built to recognize someone. Glyphs lit up as she passed. Symbols she still didn't understand but could almost hum. Each corridor shifted behind her not to trap, but to protect. "Your frequency is stronger now," Nyra said, eyes glowing brighter than ever. "It's not just reacting, it's harmonizing." "I don't know what I'm doing," Elia whispered. "You're doing exactly what was written into you," Kael said hoarsely. "You're becoming." The vault's heart was a chamber of crystalline architecture. No screens. No machines. Just a floating orb of light and sound alive, suspended in the center. It pulsed when Elia entered. Her heart skipped in sync. And then it spoke not in words, but in resonance. Notes that struck her soul like tuning forks. "Access pending. Voice confirmation required." Kael and Nyra dropped to one knee behind her. Elia stepped forward, trembling. "What do I say?" she asked. "Don't say," Nyra whispered. "Sing." She closed her eyes. Reached inward not for knowledge, but for memory. Not just hers. Her mother's lullabies. The sound of falling rain on a steel roof. The silence after a bomb fell. The voice that cracked when she said goodbye. She let them all rise. And then she opened her mouth. What came out was not music. It was truth made sound. The orb exploded in light. The entire chamber shifted, walls folding back, harmonics surging through the air like heat lightning. Glyphs ignited across the floor, the walls, Kael's armor, Nyra's skin. All of them pulsing with her song. Resonant match confirmed. Access granted. A hidden door melted open behind the orb. Within it, knowledge, archives, answers and something else. A suit. Sleek, built of light reactive alloy. Etched in the same patterns she had seen in a shard. Designed not for battle, but for amplification. Kael stared at it with awe. The voice frame. Elia stepped toward it like she was walking into her own skin. As it clasped around her body, sound flooded her senses, not noise, not chaos, but clarity. She could feel the heartbeat of the moon beneath her. The breath of Kael and Nyra behind her. The dying echoes of a civilization long lost, and not yet gone. She turned. Nyra's eyes shimmered with something close to tears. Kael bowed his head. I'm not who they wanted, Elia said softly. I'm not trained. I'm not wise. You're better, Nyra whispered. You're real. In the silence that followed, a new tone rang out. Not from her. From the stars above. Multiple ships entering orbit. Kael's hand moved to his weapon. They followed. Nyra's voice was calm now. Fierce. Then let them see what she is. Elia looked up at the vault, then at the sky. And this time, when she opened her mouth, the stars listened. The moment Elia stepped from the vault, she felt the air vibrate with tension. Kael moved beside her, his armor faintly scorched from their earlier escape. Nyra flanked the other side, her glow back to full intensity, strands of her hair floating as if lifted by invisible waves of energy. Above them, the sky shimmered. 3 ships, sleek, black, fang-shaped, hung in low orbit, circling like predators scenting blood. They are scanning for the voice frame signature, Kael muttered. They know it's here now. Nyra tilted her head. Let them look. Elia stood still, feeling her body adjust to the suit now hugging her like a second skin. It didn't feel like armor. It felt like an amplifier, tuned to her breath, her heartbeat, her intentions. What do I do? She asked. Kael said, speak, and the world bends. Nyra added, but feel and it obeys. The first strike came fast. A pulse beam from the lead ship lit the sky, slicing through atmosphere like lightning. But before Elia could move, the voice frame responded. She didn't command it. She simply reacted. She felt the air compress and instinctively opened her mouth, releasing a low-frequency tone that rippled through space like a living wall. The beam shattered midair. Elia staggered back, stunned. I didn't. Yes, Kael said, stepping forward, eyes wide with something like awe. You did. They reached the plateau near the ancient vault gate just as the enemy's dropships landed. Dark figures emerged. Not soldiers, but resonant leeches, Verlium assassins designed to steal sound-based tech and silence it permanently. Tall, skeletal, faces like melted obsidian, and weaponry grown from their own arms. Kael drew his blades. I hold the line. Nyra raised both hands. I'll redirect their focus. Elia looked between them. No. They paused. This time, you stay behind me. As the assassins advanced, Elia stepped forward and raised her hand. Her body thrummed with energy not just from the suit, but from inside her. From the thing that had always been there, buried beneath grief, silence, and fear. She let herself remember. The sirens. The hospital room. The moment her mother stopped breathing. The years of pretending she wasn't breaking inside. And then the moment the sound came back. In the shard. In her dreams. In Kael's quiet loyalty. In Nyra's reckless light. It rose now as a song. Not a melody. Not a battle cry. A vibration of belonging. The air around her rippled. A harmonic wave burst from her body, pure, bright, unstoppable. The first line of assassins dropped their weapons. Some collapsed to their knees. Others screamed, ears bleeding not from volume, but from truth. Her resonance rejected them, denied their corruption. Kael lowered his blades, stunned. Nyra's hand flew to her chest, eyes wide with sudden emotion. She's not just a voice, Nyra whispered. She's a frequency of refusal. A refusal to be erased. When it was over, the assassins fled. What they couldn't silence, they couldn't face. Elia stood in the stillness that followed, panting. Sweat beaded her brow, the suit dimming slightly as it recharged. Kael approached her cautiously. You. She cut him off by placing a hand on his chest. I didn't do that alone. His voice was low. We're yours. That's always been true. Nyra joined them, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. And now you know what you are? Elia looked at them both. No, she said softly. Now I know what we are? She reached for Nyra's hand. Nyra blinked in surprise but didn't pull away. Then Elia turned to Kael and to her surprise, he reached first. Not with a weapon. Not with protocol. With intent. 3 hands touched. 3 pulses synced. And above them, for the first time in centuries, the vault glowed with acceptance. That night, around a low fire built in the shelter of the valley wall, Elia sat between them tired, aching, changed. Kael cleaned the blood from his armor with patient ritual. Nyra hummed softly beside her, the melody gentle, unshaped. Elia leaned back, eyes to the stars. You were designed for me, she said aloud. But I wasn't designed for anything. Nyra's voice was soft. That's why you're perfect. Kael nodded. Because you chose us. And for the first time since arriving in this galaxy-forsaken system, Elia didn't feel like a refugee. She felt like a center. Not a chosen one. A choosing one. They stood at the edge of the world. The vault hummed behind them alive now, no longer dormant. The harmonic glyphs had spread across the ancient moon like roots reaching for starlight. What had been silent for generations was now pulsing with life. And in the sky above, ships gathered. Not enemies. Allies. Ships bearing the sigils of outcast Saltharan clans, long thought dead. Resistance fleets. Smugglers who had hidden exiles. A broken people returning to orbit a song they hadn't heard in centuries. They came for the voice. They stayed for the girl who sang with a wounded heart. Inside the command chamber, Elia stood before the projection array. The coalition leaders appeared as flickering holograms, violet-skinned elders, grizzled captains, even hybrid descendants like her with glinting human eyes. We received a signal, said the oldest among them. Unmistakable. Matrix frequency 7R. Another leaned forward. The voice of the bloodline. You wear the frame. Do you claim the title? Elia hesitated. Kael and Nyra stood behind her, silent. She could feel their breath. Their belief. But she didn't speak immediately. She looked around the chamber not as a throne room, but as a bridge. A place of transition. I'm not a ruler, she said finally. I'm a signal. A beginning. If you came here looking for someone to fix the past, I can't. But I can offer this. She lifted her hand. A pure note rose from her throat. And in it, no command. No order. Just hope. That night, Elia walked alone beneath the stars. The vault was quiet again, content. She found Kael leaning against a pillar, polishing his blades not from necessity, but out of habit. "You never asked for this either," she said. He didn't look up. "I was made for it. But do you want it?" He paused. "Then, I want you to live free." Elia stepped closer. "That's not the same as wanting me." Kael met her gaze. And for once, the steel in his eyes softened. "I think I'm still learning how." She smiled. "Then let's keep learning." She found Nyra outside the echo chamber, lying on a stone slab, staring at the stars. "Could you hear me?" Elia asked, sitting beside her. "Always," Nyra said with a dreamy smile. "Even when you didn't know you were singing." They sat in silence. "I think I love you," Elia said quietly. "Both of you. Differently. Fiercely." Nyra turned her head, eyes glowing soft and warm. "We were built to be loyal. But I've never felt like this. It's not programming anymore." Elia leaned into her, shoulder to shoulder. "Then let's rewrite the code." Weeks passed. The voice frame adapted to Elia's body more completely each day. She learned to shape sound into structure, to calm or inspire with a hum, to disable with a whisper. Kael became her blade. Nyra, her balance. They became her home. When the Viralium sent scouts again, they didn't find a frightened technician hiding in an outer station. They found a signal tower, standing between two warriors. They found a voice that could shatter lies and heal silence. On the day they launched their first true fleet, an alliance of fractured worlds bound together by vibration, by music, by meaning, Elia stepped onto the bridge with her two guardians at her side. "Not servants. Equals." "I never wanted any of this," she whispered as the stars parted before them. Nyra grinned. "And look what you made anyway." Kael just reached out and took her hand. Together, they stepped forward. Not as prophecy, but as possibility. Elia wasn't born to rule. She wasn't trained to fight. But she became something far rarer, someone who chose to rise. She sang, not to be heard, but to remember who she was. And in that choice, everything changed. Now it's your turn. If you had the power to wake a sleeping world, would you use it? Or would you hide from it? Let me know in the comments what you think Elia's next move should be. Should she lead? Should she run? Or is there something in between, something only you would write? If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, or subscribe for more tales that hum beneath the surface. Because out here in the quiet, someone is always listening.